To activate the auto-generated connection, as you guys know, we have to go on steel. You have to click on that sort of like little drop down there. Make sure to add all the connection that you need. In my case, since I want to use all of them, I'm just gonna add all, right? Click on OK. All the connections will be added on. And then selecting all those sort of like components that you wish to be shared in that connection. For example, this one and that beam is like supposed to share the connection there, right? So I'm going to select them both, go on steel, go on connection, and then as you can see, the connection is turning into green. You try to select that connection, you open up that drop down, and all the available connections will show up. So I want to go with the usual clip angle one that is available to us. So if I click on clip angle, let me see what happens. So as you can see, the clip angle one perfectly works on at this sort of like connection that we've got, right? So as you can see, if you're using the default versions, or I would say the default columns and like the beams that we've got in Revit, the UB universal one, most of the time everything works. So if somehow in your project you're having like, let's say, the same sort of like framing sections, that would be the most luckiest one, because that would be like the less hassle at all. Let me like, for that part of the connection, I want to like again select them both, go on steel, go on the connection, have the connection. We just like have to make sure that we choose the proper connection. I guess like that should be fine because it's number 2, right? So I want to open up the connection. This time I want to go with the moment connection. So moment, flange, plate, that's the connection that I was looking for. As you can see, this other connection is also like perfectly working as well, right? So if like you guys are looking for more complicated connection, definitely moment frame would be an great example for that. But as you can see, since the frames are compatible with these connections, the result is pretty satisfying, right? There is honestly like there is no need like to add on something in terms of like manual version, because nothing is happening. I would say most likely this is like the issue, that if you're using like different sort of framing sections, usually it might happen that those bolts are getting connected together, which is like an huge issue, right? And it's really hard sometimes to solve those sort of issues. So for example, I can just like select the connection, go on the edit type, go on the modified parameters that we've got here, and start to add on or like modify the connection the way I wish, right? So it's all doable, and it's actually like pretty easy in routine. So the point that I wanted to share so far is that if you're using this sort of like UB universal like framing sections, most likely there is no need to go manual, unless you want to do something that it's not like covered, let's say in the auto-generated version. Well, now that we already covered the auto-generated version, now let's see what happens if like we're using like different sort of framing section rather than default one, and we want to like do the connection manual because it's not working out. So for that purpose, for example, what I can do, I can start to change the type of the columns here. Let me see what sort of like other columns we've got here. So that's the only category of like the columns that we've got here. So we need to load on some columns. So let me go on structure, on the column, load family there, and then from the libraries, right? English, structural columns, steel, since we are working with steel. So for example, M-wide flange column, I want to like go with that option. So I'm gonna click on open. Make sure to load on all the sizes in. Perfect. And also like want to go with beam 2. Again, load family there. English. structural framing for the beams, right? Steel, and wide flange again, right? So those are the common sections that most of the time we use. So I'm just gonna like go with them. Perfect. So I just like selected these two columns and changed them like to these two sizes. So those are not the default version that we are using. Those are not the UB universal one, right? And wide flange W360 times 262. The beam also like got changed to W310 times 2 times 52. And I want to make sure that the same framing section is getting applied over the other two spans that we've got here. So in order to do that, I'm going to like select that beam. And here we've got an option called match type properties. I want to like select that one, hit on space, and then select the other one. Select, let's do that again. So as you can see, that one got changed to 310 times 52. Let me see if that one changed too. Yes, so we're all fine in terms of the framing sections that we've got. So what I want to do, I want to like select these two beam and columns, go on steel, and see what the connection would happening this time, since we already like changed the default version. So I want to like open that up, go with again clip angle. So far it's working well, right? Like nothing too crazy happens. The bolts are not getting sort of connected in a way that like ridiculously like not working at all. Let me also like check that with the moment framing connection. So going on the steel connection again. Right, open that drop down, go for the moment, that one, and let's see what happens. So as you can see, we faced up with that error, right? So as you can see, the bolts are getting connected together, and the reason behind that is that these I would say these sort of like bolts are like too close to the web of that beam. For that purpose, Revit is not like recognizing them to cut them off. For that purpose, they're getting all connected together. So that's the whole point it's happening there. We have like bunch of options to work with. Let's say number one is that we can go for break and start now working on it manually. However, I wouldn't like suggest that much, because definitely if we start everything from scratch would be kind of better, right? You have the control over everything. But sometimes you might sort of realize that, okay, like what I'm having here from, let's say, to start up from it, it's pretty good. So if you find, let's say, the setup that you've got pretty, I would say, satisfying to start working on it, then do not go from scratch, and then break the connection and start working from it on here. However, what I want to do for today, I want to like start doing everything from scratch. So better like I get to learn how I would be able to do the whole connection in case of something happening like this. Number one thing that I want to do, I want to get back like on level 2, finding my connection, here my connection, just making sure that the beam is getting like on a proper sort of distance between the column as well. Once these there, so I have, let's say, sort of like in guideline here. If I get back like on 3D, right? So I'm having like, let's say, the moment framing connection there, right? So let me see if I can do the same thing the other way, right? On my M wide column and the wide flange beam that we've got there. So I can make like some sort of like dimensions and then try like to apply that here. It's pretty easy to make that connection. You guys will see that. So number one thing that I want to do, I want to go on my level 2 and I want to like measure that plate it is. So super easy, just going like on modify, trying like to bring up the measure, and from here I can see that the measure is somehow around like 50 centimeters, right? Or like to be more precise, 0.48. So number one thing that I want to do here is like to do a plate, and the plate should be exactly getting or like facing on top of the beam that we've got there, right? On the top flange part of the beam. So I go on structure, I go on steel, right? On plate, and there's no need like to define a reference plane, because I can like set my work plane on a peak plane and use the top part of the beam. For that purpose, there is no need like to add on a reference plane. However, if let's say I wanted to define a plate which was like lower than the a plate that I could like select here as my reference plane, then I had to define a reference plane and then refer that it here like to be able to work on it. Anyhow, so far we're all fine because we're working on the top flange. So I start putting on my rectangle there, right? Let me see what would the sizes that it should be. So it should be 0.48, right? So select everything and making sure that I'm exactly having 0.48 from the other side. Click on finish, right? Gonna get back like to the 3D. And I want to like see what is the distance, I would say what is the thickness of that plate that we've got. So I'm going to break that connection to better like see everything. So as you can see, the thickness is pretty the default one that we've got. It's like around 1 centimeters and 27 millimeters. So going to get back here, it should be the same thing, right? Perfect. So far we're all fine, right? Now the other thing that I wish to have is to copy paste the same sort of like plate on the top part of the beam. So for that purpose, what I want to do, I want to get back to level 1. Let me go to level 2, that would be better. Make a section from the place that, or from the location that you're defining your connection. So I'm about to make a section there, right? Going there, putting my detail level on fine, consistent colors, and then extending the frame section that we've got here to see everything. So that is the plate that we've got here. So what I want to do, I want to like trying to mirror what I've got here. So I selected the plate that I've got here and trying to mirror. As you can see, pretty easy. The plate just got happen on the lower part. So we're all fine in terms of the top part, top plate and the bottom plate. Getting back again to the 3D. Here we go. And now it's time to add on the bolts on, right? So far we've all fine with we're pretty done with the plates that we were supposed to put on. And the remaining part is only the bolt part. So let me see how we can apply the bolt part to it. To apply that, since we already broke the connection, I can go on level 2 and try to select those sort of bolts that we've got here. So as you can see, bolts are not applied here as in a group of bolts. It's only like, I would say, just like single bolts getting there because we broke the connection. So somehow we can realize that what would be the distance between these two bolts. So here, let me see if I can measure that. It's supposed to be around 9 centimeters. So I'm gonna get back there and trying to make an, let me like select the stuff that I've got here. Getting on steel, on bolts, right? Let me do that again. So we are here on level 2, clicking on bolts. Getting back again here. Perfect. So there was just like an quick crash going there. So if you want to like apply the bolts over that plate, what I have to do is clicking on the bolts, then selecting the component that we've got, Also, I want to like select everything, so the beam too as well, right? And then hit on space, and then you can select the surface part of the plate that you're supposed to put on bolt on, right? And now I'm trying to define the bolts over it. So that's the whole pattern, or like the boundary that the bolts are supposed to getting over them, right? Clicking on finish. And as well we talked, let me first see what is the size and the type of the bolt that we've got here. So the size is A325 and the grade is 10.9, right? It's supposed to be the default one. So, however, it's not. So I'm just gonna like quickly make that happen there. A325, 325 and 10.9, right? Perfect, so those are done there. And let me see what is the diameters here. The diameters is 3/4 inch. So we'll make sure to have the same thing there too. There you go. And how many like bolts in a row? It's supposed to be 1, 2, 3, 4 over the column of 2, right? So I'm getting back here, you putting one side on 4, the other side on 2. So that's pretty much the way how it should be. And also the distance should be 0.09, right? 0.09 on the horizontal one, and on the vertical one, it's supposed to be how much we can measure that to again. So that one is around like almost 8 centimeters. So 9 and 8. Gonna get back here and trying to apply those sort of like measures there. Length on side 1, length on side 2, right? 0.8, 0.7. So the distance is not like perfectly working with it that way. Let me see what I can do. If I put that one on 0.20, which one it would be? So that one was 0.7. That one was supposed to be 0.8, sorry, right? If I'm not wrong, this one's supposed to be 0.8. Let me do that again. 0.9, sorry, almost around 0.9. So now I'm pretty sure that this one is supposed to be 0.09. Perfectly getting placed there. The other one, it's not like 0.07, right? We could put it 0.07 if we start like to putting, for example, like if we start to define the boundary somewhere from here, I think. So what I can do, I can make sure that what is the offset that we got here. So around 2 centimeters. What I want to do, I want to like, I would say, getting like to the boundary of my bolts and modify it in a way that it's not cover all the part of the bolt, right? All the part of the plate that we've got here, only like that part. So what I can see here is that, let me do an measure here. So from here, that would be around 0.28, considering the other 2 centimeters as the extension, something around 30 centimeters. So I'm gonna get back to my bolts, edit pattern, put that there, and make sure that this dimension is 0.30 if I'm not wrong. Let me get back again there. Forget about the dimension that I've got here. So do that again. 0.30, right? Perfect. So getting back here, edit pattern, making sure that this line is getting aligned here, right? And then making a dimension 0.28. So that one's supposed to be 2 centimeters more in depth. Perfect. Click on finish. it's pretty much getting to the result that like we want it to be there. Point 2. Perfect. So I would say if we just change the distance that we've got there right now is on 0.28. So let me see what would happen if I put it on 0.07. It will get back together. So we should go again 0.30, 0.27, right? So it's a trial and error, and that way you can come up with it like easily. So what I've done was I was trying like to figure out that how those numbers are kind of like working. So if I click on edit pattern, you can see that this is the pattern that it's happening. And on those lines, the bolts are getting placed there, right? So to make that happen, what I need to have here is to have the length on side 1.09 and the other 1.27. So that way I can come up with those sort of like bolts that you can see. Now I want to get back to level to the 3D, and as you can see, since at the time of like placing the bolts, I was selecting both the beam and the plate. So then as you can see, both of them are getting hold, and the bolts are getting through them. So that's what I wanted to have. Now that this part is done, I want to get back to section 1 and try to mirror that one. Let me see what happens if I do a quick mirror there. So I'm gonna like select the mirror and try to mirror that here. Perfect. So I'm pretty satisfied with the result that just happened there. As you can see, if we wanted to have a moment frame connection there, since like these beams and columns are like the end wide flange one, it was not working out. I would say the bolts were not like placing properly because they were getting connected from top to the bottom, which was definitely a huge significant error that was happening. But if you, as you can see, if we do that like manually, we would be able to place everything in a perfect way, and we can add on as much as sort of detail that we wish to have. So that's the way I suggest, definitely, because it would be definitely bring you to the final result. So I hope you guys find this video useful, and please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done it yet, as I'm always constantly updating the contents to make sure that you guys are getting to learn new stuff and tricks. Thank you.